So picture this. You're sitting in this really cozy, modern cafe, catching up with a good friend,
Ah, sounds lovely.
right? And you order your favorite meal. But when the waiter brings it out and sets it down, it is just completely wrong.
Ugh, the worst feeling.
It really is. And I mean,
Mm.
what if I told you that the best way to make that restaurant manager actually love you like, to build real lifelong loyalty, is to complain about that food?
I mean, it sounds totally backward. We're all conditioned to think that, bringing up a problem makes us the villain of the dining room.
Exactly. But today we're looking at a psychological loophole that flips that entire dynamic on its head. Welcome to this special deep dive.
Yeah, we've got some fantastic materials today from the English Effect.
We really do. And we've tailored this conversation specifically for you, the language learner. Our mission today is to crack the code on practical, everyday conversational English.
Because, let's be honest, handling bad service or incorrect food smoothly is stressful
Oh,
enough.
for sure.
And speaking up in a second language, that just adds a whole extra layer of anxiety. You're not just worrying about the cultural norms of complaining, you're trying to remember vocabulary in real time.
Yeah, it's a lot to juggle. But we want to set a really encouraging tone here. Feeling nervous about this is so common.
It really is. But by the end of this deep dive, you'll have the exact tools to transform that awkward moment into a positive win-win interaction.
So let's get right into the psychology of why we freeze up in the first place. Like, you take a bite of your food, it's ice cold, and suddenly your heart rate just spikes.
Right. And according to politeness theory, which is heavily referenced in our sources, complaining is classified as a face-threatening act.
A face-threatening act. That sounds intense.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
It essentially means you are introducing a risk to the social harmony of the room.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because humans are deeply social creatures. Our brains are wired to avoid conflict because, evolutionarily speaking, conflict means danger.
So when you tell a waiter the food is bad, your brain feels like it's doing something dangerous.
Exactly. You feel like you're threatening their social standing, making them feel unappreciated, and putting a giant spotlight on yourself. It triggers a literal fight or flight response.
Wow, so no wonder we get sweaty palms over a cold soup. Which is why we really need to redefine our first key vocabulary word for today, which is complain.
Yes, complain is such an important word to understand correctly in English.
Right, because in practical English, complaining doesn't mean shouting or throwing a tantrum.
Not at all. It simply means politely sharing information to fix a practical issue. That's it.
Just sharing data. I like that. And the sources map this out using something called the Y chart of assertiveness.
Yeah, the Y chart. It breaks conflict down into three paths. On one side, you have the passive approach.
Which is the flight response, right?
Exactly. You drink your freezing cold coffee in total silence, leave a tip, and go home frustrated.
And nobody wins there.
Right. You lose, and interestingly, the restaurant loses too because they have no idea their coffee machine is broken.
Then there's the aggressive approach, the fight response. That's the person making a huge scene, yelling at the staff.
Yeah, that spikes everyone's stress and just makes the whole cafe miserable. But the third path, the middle of the Y chart, is assertiveness.
And an assertive person aims for a win-win solution.
They do. They feel calm, they look confident, and they just say what they need.
But wait, let me push back on this a little bit.
Yeah.
Realistically, isn't it just easier to stay quiet?
What do you mean?
Like, if I'm at a small family-run cafe, doesn't it ruin the owner's day to hear that their food is bad? I mean, I often feel like I'm doing them a favor by just keeping my mouth shut.
I get why you'd feel that way. It's a very common assumption. But the reality of the hospitality industry is actually the exact opposite.
Really?
Yeah. Businesses rely on this feedback to survive. In English-speaking cultures, speaking up when you pay for a service is totally expected.
Huh. I never thought about it like that.
If you don't speak up, you deny them the chance to improve. So staying quiet isn't a favor, it's actually withholding the information they need.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, assuming we're ready to be assertive and speak up, timing is the next big hurdle.
Timing is everything.
Our sources are pretty strict about this concept called the first two bites rule.
Yes. You must signal the waiter after your first two bites or, just after a quick visual check of the plate.
Right. Taking that third bite is basically signing a legal contract.
It really is. You're telling the kitchen, I accept this meal exactly as it is.
It's like going to a movie theater, right? Imagine you sit through a whole 2-hour movie, watch the credits, and then ask for a refund because you didn't like the ending.
They would literally laugh you out of the lobby.
Exactly. If you eat the whole plate of food and then ask for a discount, the restaurant just assumes you accepted it.
Yeah, it completely changes the dynamic. It stops being a customer service opportunity and just becomes an argument.
But we also need to talk about what is actually acceptable to complain about. The sources draw a line between universal standards and personal taste.
Right, so a universal standard is an objective mistake. For example, we have the vocabulary word overcooked.
Oh yeah, overcooked means it was left on the heat way too long, like a burned piece of chicken
Yeah.
or a really dry, tough steak.
Exactly. Another good word is spoiled, which means the food has gone bad and is not fresh anymore.
Right, so complaining about overcooked or spoiled food is totally fine.
Because those are kitchen errors. But
Hmm.
then we hit this gray area called the hype gap.
Ah, the hype gap. This is when the kitchen did everything right, but you just don't like the taste.
Yeah. The sources share this great story about a fancy restaurant. A customer ordered poached fish with a mustard seed sauce.
And the chef cooked the fish perfectly.
Flawlessly. But the recipe for the sauce was just bad. The mustard seeds had no flavor.
So in that case, the kitchen didn't make a mistake. You just didn't like the chef's recipe.
Exactly. And in that situation, you don't complain to get a new meal. You just vote with your feet.
Meaning you pay the bill and you just don't go back to that restaurant.
Right. Unless, of course, the menu hid a crucial detail like failing to mention the dish is covered in a heavy allergen. Then it's the restaurant's fault.
Okay, so we know when to speak up and what to speak up about. Now, how do we actually do it in natural English?
This is where we use the soft startup method.
I love this part. A soft startup means you get the waiter's attention quietly. You give a little nod, you don't shout across the room.
Right, because shouting instantly triggers that defensive fight or flight response.
And once they come over, English speakers rely heavily on polite tricks. The sources mention the tact maxim and the modesty maxim.
Basically, we use a lot of soft, indirect language. We pad our sentences to protect the other person's feelings.
It's fascinating because every culture has its own version of this. The sources talk about the Moroccan Amazi culture, where people use religious softeners to maintain harmony.
Yeah, they might ask for blessings on the person's parents before bringing up a complaint. It's a beautiful way to show respect.
In English, we do a similar thing using specific vocabulary, like the phrase, "I'm sorry to bother you."
Yes, using the word bother shows you respect their hard work. It says, I know you're busy and I respect your time.
And then, even if your meal is completely ruined, you call it a slight problem.
Right, a slight problem. It's a polite trick to minimize the issue so the waiter doesn't feel attacked.
And the ultimate trick is using the word misunderstanding.
Oh, that's a great one.
It avoids blaming the staff directly. You aren't saying you messed up. You're just saying there was a misunderstanding somewhere along the line.
Exactly. So should we actually demonstrate this?
Oh, let's do it. Let's do a short role play using the first 2 bites rule for an overcooked steak,
Yeah.
and we'll use all that target vocabulary.
Perfect. I'll be the waiter, and you're the customer who just took a bite of a really tough steak.
Okay, I'm catching your eye as you walk past.
But I'm walking over to your table now.
Excuse me. I'm really sorry to bother you, but there seems to be a slight problem.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. How can I help?
Well, I feel this steak is a bit overcooked. I asked for medium rare, but it's quite dark all the way through.
Oh, I completely apologize for the misunderstanding. Let me take that back and get a fresh one started for you right away.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And scene.
That was painless. Notice how completely normal and calm that was. No one got angry.
Right. And the reason it worked so well psychologically is because of your use of I statements.
Yes, instead of you statements, I didn't say, "You burned my steak." I said, "I feel this steak is overcooked."
Which is brilliant because starting with you immediately makes people defensive. Psychologist Marshall Rosenberg calls this nonviolent communication.
He uses this great metaphor with animals, right? The jackal and the giraffe.
Yeah, the jackal uses aggressive, blaming language like, you brought me the wrong food.
But the giraffe uses empathy and just observes the situation. The giraffe says, "I feel this steak is closer to well done."
It strips away the blame. And to help remember this, we can use the DESC method. DESC.
Right. Describe the facts, explain your feelings, specify a solution, and conclude positively.
And, being a giraffe doesn't mean you can't be frustrated. Frustrated is another great vocabulary word. It means feeling annoyed when things go wrong.
It is totally okay to feel frustrated,
Yeah,
but expressing it calmly is what leads to a resolution.
exactly. A resolution is a successful fix, like bringing you a hot, fresh meal, or sometimes offering a refund to give you your money back.
So why go through all this effort to be so polite? This brings us to the most interesting part of the deep dive, the service recovery paradox.
This concept is so counterintuitive, but it's amazing. Let's look at the timeline of trust.
Okay, time one. You sit down, you order, your trust in the cafe is normal.
Right. Then time two, a mistake happens, you get cold food, obviously your trust drops.
But then, time three. You politely complain using a soft startup, and they offer a great resolution. They fix it quickly and apologize.
And here is time for the paradox. Your trust actually spikes higher than it was at the very beginning.
Wait, really? Higher than if the meal had just been perfect.
Yes, because watching a business successfully fix a problem proves they're competent and that they care about you.
That's incredible. And the sources give a huge real-world example of this, the Slack outage in 2015.
Oh, yeah. Slack is a messaging app,
Yeah.
and their system went completely down for 3 hours.
A total disaster for a tech company. People were very frustrated. But instead of hiding, Slack responded with over 2,300 personalized, funny, human apologies on social media.
And the result, they actually gained 3,300 new followers that day.
Wow. They deepened customer trust just by handling the mistakes so well.
Exactly.
But wait, I have to ask, does a good apology always guarantee that I'll go back to that restaurant?
That is a catch. The sources reference a meta-analysis by a researcher named Matos.
Okay, what did Matos find?
He found that a great recovery boosts your satisfaction in that moment, but it doesn't automatically guarantee repurchase intentions.
Meaning it doesn't guarantee loyalty.
Right. Loyalty means you strongly support the business and keep going back. Matos showed that if the failure was too severe, like a massive food safety issue, or if they keep making the same mistake, loyalty won't happen.
That makes sense. True loyalty requires the business to prove they actually learned from the mistake.
Exactly. But if you never speak up, they never get the chance to learn or fix it.
So, bringing it all together, speak up early with the first two bites rule.
Use polite English tricks, like saying slight problem.
Be a giraffe, not a jackal. Use I statements and aim for a win-win resolution.
You definitely have the tools now to practice this natural English in the real world.
We really encourage you to keep improving your English naturally by trying these phrases out. If you found this deep dive helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to The English Effect.
And we want to hear from you. Join the conversation in the comments and tell us about a time a politely handled mistake made you love a business even more.
Yeah, and here is your challenge. Try to use one of today's vocabulary words in your comment. You can use complain, frustrated, resolution, or loyalty.
It's great practice.
Before we go, I want to leave you with one final kind of crazy thought.
Oh, let's hear it.
If the service recovery paradox proves that brilliantly fixing a mistake creates more loyalty than a flawless experience, is it possible that some clever businesses out there are intentionally making small mistakes just so they can show off their amazing recovery skills?
Oh, wow. That would be wildly manipulative, but honestly, it's a fascinating theory.
Something to mull over the next time your coffee comes out just a little bit too cold. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.